Hello, everyone. So we are live and we have Jasmine with us all the way from Singapore. Welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Today we are here to talk about, Montessori, obviously, your journey with Montessori, with your two children, and even with your husband, because you pretty much a Montessori family. And also to talk about, minimalism, decluttering, KonMari a little bit. And we're going to share some pictures that have been shared with us to give kind of guidance regarding this picture about how to set up your house, a Montessori way, how to set up a house that is suitable for young children.
It's going to be a pretty busy hour. We might end up taking more than an hour at this rate.
Yeah, maybe. I've been following you since you've started your blog 3 Minutes Montessori and following your whole journey here in London when you moved abroad for a year. But maybe some parents here are just discovering you. So could you please introduce yourself and your family?
My name is Jasmine and I'm from Singapore. I have 2 children and they're 4.5 and coming to 6. And the way that I found Montessori was, I think, through blogs, like many other people. And now we have so much more than blogs, right? But when I saw the beautiful pictures, I just fell in love with it, and I knew I had to find out more. And then I also realized that at that time I didn't know, but what I believed in as a young parent to a newborn, believing that they could be independent, they had lots of potential, and they could do so much if given the chance. They could be something really, really special. And I realized that Montessori had all that. Montessori had discovered all of that.
Yeah. So you have answered my second question already, because that was how did you discover Montessori? So that's great, brilliant, no problem. Through blogs like many people. It's through blogs, through Pinterest, and it's a great way to start. After obviously you're going to explain a bit more why you wanted to do more research about it and learn more about it, and even the way your Montessori journey has evolved, because the beginning of your blog is very different from what you do now.
Yes.
And if you could talk a bit about that, how and why you have changed the way you view and apply Montessori in your house.
The thing is that when I first started out, I was reading blogs, and what I saw were lots of trays, lots of beautiful spaces, like so many of us see. But at a certain point, it wasn't quite enough. And I wanted to find out more about Montessori, which is when I did the training, because an opportunity arose for us to go to London. So I did the 3 to 6 training at AMI in the UK, the Maria Montessori Institute. And after that, I was hooked. So I went for the 6 to 12 training as well, also at AMI. And this time I managed to get my husband to join me. So Andrew is 6 to 12 assistant trained as well. And I think that being able to talk to experts, being able to learn from Montessori trainers, being able to observe in all of these authentic schools, and having our children placed in AMI schools in London, that has been transformative, really. It's changed everything that we thought we knew about Montessori. Not that what we read on the blogs was inaccurate, not at all, but it just gave us such a deeper understanding of the philosophy. And I think the one most important thing about the way that I've changed in my understanding of Montessori is simply this, that it's really not about the materials. If you're a Montessori at home parent like me, as my trainer put it, you can have all of the materials and none of the principles, or you could have all of the principles and none of the materials. And I think that having relocated from Singapore to London, and then from London back to Singapore, and with all the KonMari, there's definitely been times when my shelves have been empty, my boxes, I just can't bear to open them and start sorting them out. And so that's when I actually realized that the children, that we didn't really need all of these things, and that we could Montessori, we could apply in our daily life very organically. And I think that the blog has also traced that evolution in our parenting as well.
Absolutely. I think if people go back to your blog and look through the history of the blogs, they will see that evolution, and it's great to see, basically, because it's probably what happens to parents when they start to dig deeper into the Montessori philosophy. They're going to understand that maybe it was just discovered Montessori because of the toys, but in the end they're going to change their mindset about a lot of other things, obviously. And that's really great that you explained that that it's important maybe to take the opportunity to observe in a classroom, even if the parents don't do the training, even if they will never be able to afford to send their children to a Montessori school. If they're with one locally, or even 1 hour distance, and they can ask, I would like to observe because I'm very interested, but I don't know what this looks like in the classroom, then most Montessori schools, all of them should at least, are very open to that. They have open days and you can ask to come and observe in the classroom. They have system, most of the IMI Montessori school have this kind of mirror window, so you can observe without being seen. So as a prospective parent, is something that is offered generally, and even if you just want to be a guest, most Montessori schools are totally open to that. So I think that's a great opportunity to really, understand what's going on in the classroom. And there are some beautiful videos of classrooms in action that can be very nice as well for parents to see and to really, try to have a feeling of what's going on in the classroom. Yeah. And when you said as well about the empty shelf, it's funny because you probably know her, Paula Lillard. She has a book about Montessori classroom, and that's the way she starts a classroom, with empty shelf, and just to introduce the guidelines of the classroom and the rules of the classroom. And I remember being a new teacher, and I did that. I removed all the Montessori materials because the previous teacher was not Montessori trained, so we didn't have the proper ambience, even if we had children who have been with us for a year. So I removed all the Montessori materials. I left just a few, toys and Play-Doh and these kind of things. And then we introduced the classroom's rules. And after 2 weeks, I started to introduce the materials and being able to present one by one. And, it was very formative to do that, very. So basically, you have said as well that you have decided to train as a parent because basically the opportunity arose and it was too good not to be too good to miss, I suppose. So why basically did you choose to train as a parent? Because I think even at the time, it was already possible to find online courses for parents. And nowadays it's maybe much easier for parents to say, okay, I cannot afford to become a teacher, so I'm going to look at a parenting course. But why in your case did you choose to train as a parent? Because I don't think you had the plan to become a teacher because it's not really possible in Singapore. I don't know if you had the idea to become a teacher and that was, more a professional reason. So just let me know about that.
It wasn't so much for professional reasons because I'm already a qualified teacher in Singapore. So I didn't see the need to retrain. But also the AMI diploma training is 1 whole year. It's five days a week. And on top of that, you've got so many assignments to write. So I really take my hats off to anyone who has completed the diploma because that is no mean feat, especially if you've got young children. But then I thought that the 3 to 6 assistance course was a nice in-between. It was going to be a nice balance of observations in the classroom as well as theory and some application, because I think in the 3 to 6 assistance course, we were taught things like how to do grace and courtesy lessons, how to make certain materials, and these have proved to be valuable to me as a parent, especially things like grace and courtesy lessons, which are not really things that you will see on the shelves. If you're on Instagram, you don't really see grace and courtesy lessons, do you? But these are the things that keep the classroom functioning, and by extension, I think they keep the home very harmonious if you have more than one child.
Yeah, definitely. Social media are great to raise the profile of Montessori and to introduce Montessori to parents. But obviously, there are so many aspects of the philosophy that it's very difficult to show. Yes. And as you say, I think the real life, the practical life, the day-to-day, the way we discipline our children, all of that cannot be shown on an Instagram post. Yeah. And it has to be discussed, basically. I think that's easier. Or even in your case, you show your house. That's even better. From your training, what is the most important things you have learned in your training?
Oh, this is a hard question. There's so many important things. Well, I think for me, actually, it was not so much what I learned, but what I had to unlearn, because
Mm.
when I came in as a high school literature teacher, so I had heard and I had worked at a Ministry of Education headquarters in Singapore before. So I knew what people were saying in terms of policy. I knew that we were moving in a direction of self-directed learning. I think that's the terminology that we use here. But what is self-directed learning if it is a teacher and 40 students in a classroom? Can you really say that each student is learning at his own pace? And,
Mm.
I was thinking about these things, and then here I was sitting at Maria Montessori Institute, and I realized that what these Montessori trainers are talking about is self-directed learning. It is about students being able to trust their own inner guides, and that takes them so much further than even a super teacher could.
Yeah, I believe that's really the way the teacher sees his role or her role, that is very different, within the Montessori education and within any other kind of school system, basically.
Yes.
And as soon as the teacher sees himself or herself as a guide, as just a facilitator, not the one who's going to give the knowledge, then it's changed the mindset. And I think even a teacher within mainstream education can apply that, but it has to be a training from the beginning. During the training, you have to be taught those skills from the beginning to trust a child.
And this is why it takes a full year for someone to receive a diploma, because you really need to transform your own self first.
Absolutely, yes, that's what we call the spiritual preparation of the teacher, right? And it's indeed, it's the same for parents. I totally believe that as a parents, we are going into a transformative process while we raise our children. And our children are not going to do what we want them to do. They're not going to react in the way we had imagined they would react. They're going to push on our buttons for sure, and they're going to awaken a lot of deep emotions that we didn't have to take care of before we had our children. And it might be a bit the same, with our partner. It has some kind of dynamic, going on over the years, and we need to work on some stuff. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And that's the same with our children. If you ignore those stuff, it's not going to be a peaceful family life. And the same in the classroom. Every teacher comes with her own baggage, basically. And if we don't take into account that, we're not going to have that beautiful ambience that we talk about, that little beehive of happy children if we don't deal with whatever is going on within us. So that spiritual preparation is so important, right?
That is very true, and I think that is why Montessori training is so transformative for so many people. And it just reminds me of the days when I used to teach in mainstream schools, and the teacher is really the center of attention in the classroom, like it or not. No matter how well you can structure your lesson and you can plan for your students to learn, the teacher is the center of it. But in the Montessori classroom, it is different. The mark of a successful teacher, as Dr. Montessori says, is for the children to act as if the teacher did not exist. And that is when the children can really take over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing sometimes when you visit a Montessori school that you have to spend a lot of time finding the teacher, right?
Yes, isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, it's wonderful. But I've worked, in many Montessori schools with non-trained teachers, with not even assistant, because it's the way it works here in the UK. And it was a very difficult concept to explain to my colleagues that we didn't have to lead them. We didn't have to constantly interact with them, that we had to observe them and be discreet. And sometimes they perceive me as being like mean because I was not chatting constantly with the children, and, like interacting or asking them what they were doing. And here in the UK as well, the inspecting body is going to kind of push with like, okay, how do you, encourage more learning? How do you, and so they have to understand Montessori when they come and visit the Montessori schools. Otherwise, they're not going to get that. They will feel that we done support the child, basically, because we were not like constantly chatting and providing more information or so on. So it's a very different mindset. Yeah, but we do know that it works, right?
Yeah, I think Montessori schools tend to be misunderstood, and that's why in London, the AMI schools make it compulsory, I think, for prospective parents to observe in the school, so you know what you're getting into. But in Singapore, in the Montessori schools here, there are very few that are authentic. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that they don't really have this practice of making observations compulsory for prospective parents. So I think there is a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, to make it more, it has to be accessible, obviously, and that's why sometimes the method is diluted. But I think from what I've seen, when a school is decide to be authentic and to be very true to the Montessori philosophy, then they can succeed as well. There is no reason not to succeed, not to here in the UK at least, not to have a great Ofsted inspection, because they do. They do, because it's just the result is there, so they cannot deny that result. Yeah. So we're going to talk a bit more now about your journey with KonMari, with decluttering, with minimalism. You have done also an interior design course when you were in London. You were definitely busy, and you have shown basically how you have reduced the clutter in your own house, and obviously you were in London in a small flat, a rented flat, so you couldn't take everything with you, and need to take everything back with you. And now in Singapore, I think the space are quite limited. It's quite limited as well. So you are in that situation. But I do believe that many parents are in that situation. And even if we have a big house, it's not, the purpose is not to fill in with a lot of stuff anyway. So can you talk about the importance of having an uncluttered environment for children? Why is it important?
So I think you've revealed that I'm a bit of a training junkie. First, the training with AMI, and then the interior design level 1 training. And then KonMari was just through reading the book. And of course, everyone knows KonMari this month because of the Netflix series. But can I just say that if you're watching the Netflix series, that the book is actually better if you want to really declutter. I think there was research that showed that less decorated classrooms are actually better for learning because there are less visual distractions on the walls. And it's really contrary to what we think preschool classrooms should be like, with all of these posters and what's the weather chart like and the letter of the day. And it's really quite the opposite of that. And that's why I think Montessori classrooms somehow got it right many years ago. But for me at home, I think the most important thing about having an uncluttered environment was just the breathing space, not just physically, but mentally. Somehow, you feel a lot lighter. I felt a lot lighter after I decluttered. I didn't have to go on a diet. I just had to clear things that weren't bringing me joy, that had been outgrown, that didn't fit anymore. And after that, it was really strange because I started this decluttering journey for my children. I thought that it would help with their learning environment at home. But I realized that I had benefited as well because I felt a lot clearer, and I was able to have the capacity to do a lot more things, which is when I started taking on workshops. And finally, at my last workshop last year, a participant came in and she kind of like looked around and said, "Do you live here? Does anyone live here?"
Pardon?
So she thought that she said, "Does anyone live here?" So
right, yeah. Because it was too decluttered.
I think she did not expect that a house with children could still look quite neat and fairly uncluttered. And now, children in the first plane, that's like 0 to 6 years old, they love to learn as we learn. They love to do as adults do. They have this wonderful capacity to imitate us, and that's how they learn so much about their family, their culture, the community around them. And I think that the decluttering has paid off kind of accidentally because the children have become neater. I know that this is just a phase. It will probably change in the second plane when they become really messy and their work is everywhere. So I'll probably regret saying this next year because my son turns 7 next year. But yeah, so in the meantime, I feel that it's helped them to pick up a really good habit of keeping things where they are, of taking care of their possessions. And I think for that, I'm really grateful.
Yeah, and I agree that in the second plane, the tidiest, children are not the tidiest. They are totally into something else. And you can make them tidy when they start to understand that it's like a family job, That is not
Yeah.
that to have empathy for the poor mom doing everything, or daddy doing everything. But it's definitely, you do need to still be a good role model. And I have blog about my own journey with KonMari because I am a Montessori teacher, but my sense of order was totally disrupted when I was a child. I know what happens at that time, and I have never been, an orderly person and kind of an hoarder, like especially with the educational stuff. So I went through that KonMari journey like 3 years ago, and now I can still be disorganized, and but I know that as soon as I say okay, that's enough, and then we tidy up like in an hour is tidy. Why before it was like a big task. But definitely I can see that my children have observed me going through the process, and my daughter at some point she said, okay, I'm going to sort all my stuff the way you do it. And so she took a little collection of knickknacks. She had this little decoration that she was buying with her own pocket money, and then she held each of them and said, doesn't bring me joy. Oh yes, I like this one. And then started to sort her stuff and things that I never knew she would ever give up. And this year obviously she just turns 11, so she has started the process to sort her own toys because she doesn't play with those toys anymore. And then she did soft toys. And so we're starting to see a lot of things going out of her bedroom at the moment because of that. And yeah, she I can see that my own journey has helped her as well.
That's great.
So what would be your best tip, for people when they want to start to declutter? If you have a best tip to start with, would it be to read the KonMari book or any other things to start with?
I think I'd say start with a pile. Start by putting all of your things from one category into that big pile. Because when I did that, there was such a huge psychological shock. I actually wondered to myself, how did I amass 24 bags of, well, at that point it was really garbage, and I felt so guilty. I felt so guilty because as much as I could sell of it or give away to people who needed it, I knew that some of that stuff was going to go into landfill. So that was a rude shock for me. But after that, I think I've been a bit better at maintaining and not buying so much stuff. So probably the pile is a really, really big shock factor, and that's very useful. And the other thing is don't rush out and start buying all of these storage containers. Because Marie Kondo says that if you start to declutter your things in the right order, then you will find that you have enough storage. You'll find enough storage from all of the things that you've decluttered, and you can use them in different ways. And so that has been true for me. Save your iPhone boxes, everyone. They are so useful in any area of the house.
Absolutely. And that power of the pile, I think that is what she's not the first one to have done this kind of decluttering, but she's the first one to have make it so well known. It's like to declutter by category, because everything I've read before, any kind of articles or tips on blogs or anything that was like declutter your kitchens and declutter your bedrooms and declutter your desk. And then obviously me, when I was doing that, I was decluttering my kitchen, and it was not even finished. That, I was giving up, like halfway, saying, okay, let's put the rest there. That's fine. Because I still had the rest of the house to tidy up. And so I was never going through, a full room.
Yeah. So you never really finish.
Yeah, that's it. Or if you say, okay, you need to declutter like each object a day, then it's never really finished either. Yeah. And then you give up after a few days. But when I did that, put the pile of stuff, I remember when I was going to do the CDs, the music, the CDs were on the tables that were covering the whole dining tables. And I was like, I don't listen to a single of those CDs anymore, because, you listen to music online. And so what I did is like check on my app which music was there and what was super easy to buy if, I wanted to get them back. And I gave up, I think I have like 15 CDs, and that's like music from French music that I know was going to be more difficult to find, or singers that wouldn't want to be online, downloadable. But it was so powerful. And I remember like the nail cutters, the nail clipper, we had like probably 12 all over the house. And I had a hard time to give them up because my husband is still convinced that I'm going to lose them all. So, or misplace them. So he kept 3, I think, in his office to make sure. And we have one in the bathroom. But it was kind of funny to see. And I took pictures to remind me, and that was very powerful to do that way. Absolutely. Yeah, very powerful. The power of the pile, definitely. And so do you think children should be involved in the KonMari process? She's quite clear that from 3 years old, we should involve the children. So I don't know if you have done it with your children and what is your own experience when you help other people, if it works.
Well, I think that before the age of 3, that's when the children are less conscious, so to speak. Their memories are a bit shorter. And in those cases, I would actually not involve the children. Because the fact is that probably they might miss it, for a day, maybe for 2. But after that, I find that they usually don't ask for it. So I think in that case, you can actually do a whole declutter yourself. And the reward would be that you would see that you'll be able to put out toys that are good quality. And when you have fewer of them, your child engages with each of them much more deeply. At least that's what I've heard as well from participants who attended my workshops last year when I was conducting workshops on minimalism. But I think after 3 is different. I like when Marie Kondo says that we should involve children in tidying and letting them enjoy tidying. And she especially recommends folding as a great way for children to be involved in tidying. I don't know though if anyone caught this, but I think someone asked her on the Netflix show, how do you react when your children don't let you tidy? And she said she scolded them. So I don't think that is what I would do. But I do think that in terms of helping children to be ready to part with their possessions, it's not just a 1 or a 2-day thing. We as adults, we can do this KonMari process once and for all, and after that, we are able to maintain it with the bare minimum of, without having to radically overhaul everything and do another KonMari. But for children, I think it really is almost a year-long process, if you will, a process where they learn that many of their material possessions don't have to stay with them forever. For example, I get my children to recycle artwork. I know we all get lots of artwork, and I'm very thankful that my kids are in a Montessori school because at least that saves me from having to deal with kids' worksheets and homework. So I get them to recycle things on, I have a file for them. And whenever their file is full, that's the control of error because they can't jam anything else into their file, even if they sit on it. So then that's when they know that they have to start recycling things if they're going to want to make more art pieces and put them into the file. Things like reading them stories about giving, telling them little stories about, perhaps I tell them stories about when I was not so wealthy as a child, of friends that I knew. And I had a friend who actually did lots of this. And as a result, her child asked for her fifth birthday, not presents, but donations to a children's hospital near her house. And I thought, wow, that was amazing. And I also had another friend who did something in the run-up to Advent last year for Christmas, and she basically started modeling it herself by choosing one item to give away every single day in the run-up to Advent, and her son started doing the same thing too. So I think that it is absolutely possible for children to be involved, for them to give joyfully, but it's just that it's going to take more than a day or 2.
Of course, yeah, of course. And even if parents want to declutter a bit without their children, also they can, put away the toys that they think are really inappropriate because they just discovered Montessori, for example, and just put them in storage and see if those children will ask for them. Because sometimes when you have a very big playroom full of toys, there are toys that the children are not even aware they have. So we don't have to feel guilty because it was grandma who has offered that one, because if they don't play with it at all, it doesn't help them anyway. But the way I've did it, we didn't have that many inappropriate toys, but we had too many quantities. So I halved the quantities, like for example in my son's bedroom, and I put them, in storage. So he knew that he had access to it when he wanted. So it was not like I was giving away his toys, but I was making his space, more accessible and clearer. And when he wanted more, then he just had to ask. And because he was older, that was possible for me to do that for him. But definitely there are some toys that when they were younger that were offered to them and that they didn't really notice, and they didn't really go out anymore because they were very not appropriate and very some choices that were not that would have not have been no choices, and we knew that it was okay not to play with them, basically.
That's a good point, because I'm assuming that anyone who's joined the Montessori village is probably an involved parent and probably already knows how to choose good toys. So then the question is really, what about all our well-meaning relatives and our friends who love our kids so much? And these are the people who are bringing us toys, and that's the dilemma, because we appreciate and we need them, we appreciate and we like their friendship, and obviously we value them as family. But what about this mound of toys that I think are developmentally inappropriate for my children? And I think that really there is no, I don't know if this sounds harsh, but I don't think there is a conflict between being grateful for the gifts that your children receive versus knowing that these are not the things that you want in your house, and you don't have an obligation to keep them in your house.
Yeah, I know we said that the gift is into giving. So for the person we give the gift, that the joy for her was to give something.
Yes.
It's like when you receive gifts from colleagues at Christmas, they don't know you, so they offered you something. Or when we offer something to the teacher, we don't know them. We want to give a gift, but we don't know them, so it's a very big guess. And I've been given so many chocolates and these things, and if they don't know me, then they will offer something to me that I cannot eat anymore because we don't eat sugar, and I'm not going to stop myself with with chocolate for a week just because I've been offered chocolate. So I say thank you, and then I give them to like one of my neighbors with a picture of the chocolate. But I'm not going to say it in their face, I don't eat sugar, give it, take it back. Because they are happy to offer me something. So that happens a few times, when I was in the classroom. That's traditional to offer wine, but you don't know if you offer that to someone who has an issue with alcohol. Yes. Very delicate. So that would be the same, I try to give some very big example, but like if the grandfathers decide at 15 to give a cigarette to his grandson because he's a smoker, you're going to say no. So for me, it's obviously you might say, yeah, a plastic toy is not as bad. Yeah, but if you have to say yes to everything that is offered to you, at some point, you own family values, and the way you want to raise your children is not going to be respected, right? So we can start to see the picture. So I hope you can see the picture when I put them up. Okay. I know that people will see them, but I hope you're going to see them as well. So we have received a picture of one bathroom that has been shared by one of my clients. Basically, she has moved house, and so the bathroom is very tiny. So she's trying to make it accessible. But what do you do when you have such a tiny bathroom and it's super hard, to make space for the child?
It's a pretty narrow bathroom, and if I remember her other photo that she submitted, there's also a corner shower to the left. So there isn't really much in terms of wall space, which is pretty much the first thing I would say, get your storage and the bath toys on the walls. But she doesn't really have the wall space for that. But I will say that narrow toilets like this are a very common configuration. They are in some of the smaller and older flats that we have in Singapore. And certainly my bathroom when I was renting in London was similar to this, possibly only narrower. I think though that my suggestion is to have some kind of a foldable stool so that her child could use the toilets eventually, because I think this lady's child is 20 months old, and so probably he will start potty learning at some point when he's ready. So possibly to have a foldable stool. I would also rely heavily on suction plugs. There could be one next to the sink so that the child can wipe his hands. And one tip that I learned from you, Karine, was to have a mirror placed behind the tap so that the child can see his reflection. And that's really useful for him to refine his actions when he's washing up or when he's brushing his teeth. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. I'm also not sure about the distance from the front of the sink to the splashback, but perhaps she might consider moving her child's things closer to the front, because I'm not sure if he can reach that bar soap. where it is right now, but I could be wrong because this is based on just one photo. So I think that's one thing I would do. The other thing that I would do is that I noticed she's got a small selection of bath toys, and I do think that her selection is really nice. It is, however, on a window ledge, which means that her child possibly might have to stand up to reach for them, and he wouldn't be in the warm water anymore if he does that. So I would only suggest to maybe have some kind of a suction plug, or they have these nets. Although I've got to say, choose a net that doesn't cover everything up too much. If not, it's really frustrating because the child is trying to reach his little hand in, and he might not be able to reach the toys that are at the bottom of the net. So I'd suggest having some kind of a nice deep suction shelf where she can corral all of the toys, because she's got a few, and it's nice to not have too many, I think. And similarly, have maybe another suction shelf or another corner near the bathtub for the soap.
You can see the drawers there. So I think in that kitchen, she has, in fact, 2 drawers. I will show the next one after. But so this one is, I think, all the things that a child can access without a support. And then she has another drawer as well with knives and cutting utensils and kitchen utensils that the child has access with support, basically. So she will see that the child's needs will go in the other drawers. But this one, she has access, the child has access by herself or by himself. Yeah, so, what do you think?
So first of all, please ask for drawers, lots of them, because that was a mistake that I made with my first renovation. And as a result, I had to buy a lot of organizers to kind of maximize that space. I really wish I had more drawers. So the next time I did another renovation, I asked for a lot of drawers. So this drawer is really nice, and of course she's chosen a low one so that her child can reach it without having to step on a stool. I don't actually see any major issues with it. I like the divider. I like the selection of ceramic plates and cups that she's got. I'm wondering, there seem to be 2 categories with cups, one on the top right and one on the bottom left. So I'm wondering if there is a specific purpose for each category of cup. I could be just seeing wrongly. It could just be, I could be seeing wrongly. But I would actually suggest to cut the number of cups down even further. And maybe it's because it's just one picture, but if possible, and if you don't, and if you don't already have an area where your child can access his cleaning tools, then I would suggest to put maybe an apron. Well, aprons are not really necessary, but an apron is a nice thing to have, for a child to put on and feel that this is something that he puts on when he gets to work in the kitchen, or a cleaning cloth. I like to have 2 cleaning cloths, and I usually like to color code them. A dark one for floor messes, for wiping the floor, and a lighter one that you can use for your hands or for wiping the countertops. So probably that's the only addition I suggest. Yeah.
And I think when you say not too many cups as well, when you have a very young toddlers, if you have all the child's cups and plates in the drawers, for some toddlers is going just to be an invitation to sort, pile up and transport all those little items everywhere. But if they see only what they need for their snack, when we start to prepare a snack with them and you say, okay, let's go and prepare the snack, and you open the drawer and they know that just one plate for the snack and just 1 cup, so that's going to help them to focus on the task. Because with young toddlers, there's so much into that lining up, schema that some of them do that when they see so many. So it's nice to want to start all their belongings some way, but when we want to give them access, it's a bit different. It's just what they need for a specific purpose when they are under 3. When they're growing up, they can, they will know that all the cutleries are there and all the plates are there and so on. But when they're very young, it's great to have just what they need for the activity. So it's, again, that's up to the adult to prepare constantly, because obviously as soon as the snack is finished, there is nothing left in the drawer, we need to clean up and setting up again for the next snack time. But
so I found out that if I had one thing to if I had one more thing to mention, I think if I had to choose one cup to remove, I would choose the adult size mug with a handle, the single handle, because when children are young, it is good for them to learn how to handle cups or anything really with 2 hands. So that will minimize the chances of breakage or dropping it. So possibly just to remove that one, and if that is an adult cup, then it can go where all the other adults mugs go.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other drawer that she had was this one. At the same kitchen. I'm going to remove the other one so that we see it bigger.
Do you know how old her child is, Corinne?
I think he is. I think if I'm not mistaken, he is under 3. He's still under 3. It's probably 2.5.
Well, I think she's got a really great selection, really age appropriate for age 2.5.
It's nice. I find it.
So for this drawer, I would actually suggest separating it into 2 compartments, because it looks like she's got one compartment that could be more for baking, like the spatula. There's a little whisk, which is a nice size and height, I think, for children. A child-sized rolling pin. So that can go into one section, and then another section could be all the cooking tools and the food prep tools. Possibly, I'd say if she doesn't have enough space to make 2 compartments, she might want to consider removing the apple corer, because the apple corer is something that a lot of 2.5-year-olds might not quite have the strength yet for. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the apple corer, we need to know the trick, right? You slice the apple, and then you use the apple corer for a slice. I will post a picture of that. I have a picture of that. That's exactly what we do. That's what we did in the classroom. That's what I did with my children, and what I do in the playgroup. And in the playgroup, every time they're like, oh, because they take an apple whole and say, whoa, wait, it's not ready. And I cut the apple in slices, and then they can cut it. And you can see a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old can start to manage that, but that's a lot of strength, and it's a very challenging work. Yes, absolutely.
It is. So
it can be
quite challenging, and I think even in the children's house, teachers need to help some of the younger children with the apple coring work, I think. But I think the other thing that I might suggest is maybe to have something in this drawer that sparks joy, because I can see the potential of this drawer and how lovely it will look when things are compartmentalized a little more. I might suggest maybe a different color for the cooking compartment, and another color of drawer liner or a cloth for the baking section. Or perhaps if you get some free wallpaper samples, you could just kind of put it in so that the tools have kind of something to nest on, and it just looks nice. And wallpaper samples are free, so yeah. The only minus is that if you do that, they don't last very long in the drawer. I've learned that the hard way. But for what it's worth, it does bring you joy for like those few weeks or months.
So she just commented about the apple corer. She used it for cutting mozzarella, which is a very good idea, because mozzarella is soft, and it's a super good preparation for cutting mozzarella. It's an amazing idea. I never ever thought about that, but basically we don't eat a lot of mozzarella, so that's probably why. But if you are somebody who likes mozzarella, that's such a good idea. And well, in our house, we add the egg slicer, and that is super easy to do. That activity is the egg slicer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for commenting. I think I've learned something new today, because I'm going to have to try that with mozzarella someday. And I think that then the apple corer makes perfect sense for mozzarella with a young child. And it's interesting because that's also family culture, right? And it's really interesting because practical life looks different in every family. And you may have your own special way of doing things. And I remember that I like to cut herbs with scissors. I cut all my herbs with scissors. And some people are just horrified when they hear that I do that, because it must be done with a chopping board and a knife. But for me, scissors is much faster. So I think that's what my children learn. They learn to cut herbs and panda leaves with our scissors.
Yeah, I remember a friend going to a friend's house, and we were ordering pizza, and then they took that pair of scissors and cut the pizza. And they were like, what? And that was a special scissors, for pizza. And they were Italian, and they said, it's so much easier. And they were right, it's so much easier. But I would never do that. And it was like very shocking for me, but that was so, that was making so much sense.
Yes.
And we have this kind of pizza, cutter that the children love to use. And, that's sometimes you buy an extra kitchen tool because that's going to be something that the child will be able to do, right? Like I was talking about the egg slicer. I would never use an egg slicer for myself, never. I would think about doing some lovely slice of eggs. I don't have time for that. I eat my eggs at all. And my child, my youngest, used to love it. He was asking for eggs every day just to do it. And, that's a great way to do it. So basically, she still can sleep with children. I think she can sleep with the baby under, and her son now is probably sleeping on the top. He was not sleeping at the top at the time she took the course because she was pregnant with the second one. So she might comment on that. But yeah, that's the bedroom for now. Yeah. So you see big part of the bedroom.
Well, I don't have anything to suggest for this room really, because I like that she's put her personality into it. So it's just proof that Montessori families don't all have to live in white and wood spaces. I only live in one because I like the aesthetic of it. But you can live with color and great design like she is, and it's still totally Montessori. And it also works for her. I think she's found a solution that works, with her older child close by, but also her baby that she's co-sleeping with. And yeah, so I don't think I have anything really to say about the setup of the bed.
We
really like
the side of the room as well. Yeah, and I think the idea was to have some toys that the child can use in the bedroom independently. Right? Maybe she's going to comment because I know you're watching. Oh, that's it. On the other side, under the frame on the wall, it was water and tissues and face cream on the shelf under the bed, and needs label for the drawers. Says yes, but the labels sometimes it works, and sometimes because you don't have too many, they remember that the first drawer is that and the second drawer is that. I know that many people like to labels the drawers, and it helps obviously to have a visual, but sometimes as a parents you don't have time, or we just don't take the time to do that. And children, they do know that the first drawer is that and the second drawer is that, as long as we don't have too many stuff in the drawers, and that we as the adult we keep those drawers in order. They do know what's in each drawers, right? So it's a very great bedroom. You can see the shelves that are very high on the wall. So if you wanted to have those shelves, accessible, obviously it's not super accessible for the child. So it's pretty much for decoration. So it was probably done, before she started to have an interest for Montessori and wanted to have some decoration of the wall. So that would be the perfect shelf for books, for example. So if they were lower, I guess.
Yes. She's got a very beautiful large bedroom. I mean, it's large by my standards, that it can fit 2 beds on the floor. There is so much beautiful light from the windows. I really wouldn't add any furniture by the windows to take away from that beautiful light. I think really the only thing I would suggest, I'd suggest 2 things actually. I'm not sure where the door to this bedroom is, Corinne. Might you have any idea?
It's just opposite the window, I believe. It's just opposite the window, so in the wall behind.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, because I was wondering where the door was and whether the child who's using the potty might have privacy. Like, say, if someone opens the door, although I know it's probably just the family members who open the door. I think my only other suggestion, if the potty is in an okay place and there's privacy for the child, is maybe to bring to have some low art, because it looks like there's a small selection of toys. There's also a dollhouse for the child to put his toys. So I think that really is sufficient. You don't need too much in a bedroom space, since the bedroom is supposed to be a sanctuary, and because the parent is here, then it should also be peaceful for her and her baby as well. So possibly to consider some low art, I guess.
Yes, that's true. That the walls are a bit bare. So that's an idea, an extra thing that you could do if you want it.
It's not compulsory by any means, but it is I guess a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have any more photos just of that wall with the floor bed and the dollhouse shelf and the potty?
I think we have the baby corner that I'm not sure it's in the bedroom as well, but that's from the same person. We have a baby, so obviously she has designed a little corner for the baby.
This is wonderful.
So you can see the low shelf and the mirror, and what I like as well. Yeah, and she managed to hang the mobile, which is great, right? Because that's always so difficult to find a way to hang the mobile. But what I like here and what I would like to explain to people, it's like sometimes we are very, we want to be, we are in search of perfection, right? Especially when we see those amazing blocks with amazing baby space. Oh, that's in the lunch. That's not in the bedroom, but that's still the baby corner. And the mirror along the wall, I see many people saying, okay, I see that one, but it's super expensive, to buy a specific Montessori mirror for the wall that is safe for children with like the walking bar. But if you find, a mirror like that and you put it against the wall, knowing that it's not for an active child, but for a baby. So it's very unlikely that your baby is going to break that mirror, and you supervise your baby when you do so. I think that's going to be safe enough. And I don't know if it's a normal mirror, Christine, so you can explain that because you're watching, or if it's a safety, a safe mirror for babies. But you do not have to fix everything to the wall, okay, when you have a very young baby and you supervise it. So I would say
She's got a lovely selection of baskets and of toys, and I really like that she incorporated personal touches, like this beautiful quilted blanket that her baby is laying on, and the plant and the photo. And I think all of that is so real. It's not a Pinterest picture where nobody lives in there, but it really brings in the family, and it highlights that it's unique to this one family. So I think that this is a really lovely spot.
Absolutely. And again, with the shelf, what we can point out as well, that yes, we can have shelves for a baby, but it doesn't mean that the baby is going to go to that shelf and select the activity. It's just to store your materials, okay? Because it's not an age when the child is going to choose, select, and take the activities from the shelf. So it's quite important to say, because sometimes we have that misconception and parents thinking, okay, my child is starting to crawl, but all he does is like taking everything and throwing everything from the shelf. Yes, that's quite normal. So it's good to know. It's an IKEA wall. It's an IKEA mirror, so with a safety glass. Yes. Okay, good. So thinking of kind of play space, we have a few other. We have this one that was shared on my Facebook group, and the lady said, yeah, go ahead, please share it. And she explains that she was just starting with Montessori, so that what she has done, knowing a bit about Montessori, and she was curious to have a bit more, advice about her space.
I'd say that this is more than a start. This is a really tremendous start, wouldn't you say, Karine? I think she's just furnished it with so much love. Maybe the suggestion that I would give her is to kind of observe how her child uses the space, because the toys and the books in here all seem to have slightly different purposes. I see that there are some more open-ended things, like the kitchen. I'm not sure if she intends to make that into a working kitchen or whether it's meant to be a kitchen for make-believe. But I might put that at one place together with the ball pool, because the ball pool looks like something that would be quite nice for gross motor and movement, especially if it's cold for you guys right now. Yeah. Whereas the shelves that have the toys, that looks more Montessori, and that looks like and those look like works that would be quieter, that would foster concentration. So I might actually move that bookshelf to the bookshelf with the toys right next to the bookshelf with the books, so that then the quieter work gets put together, and the work that has movement, might have noise, then those can go together, such as the ball pool and the kitchen. And it looks like there's a tool bench on wheels as well. Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe she could consider moving her table into the center, so it's kind of in the center and it's equidistant from all of that, if she wanted to. But again, it's really not compulsory to buy anything. I get worried when I'm just afraid that I'll give the impression that you have to buy this and buy that, and really you don't. But if she has a spare rug somewhere in her house, grounding the table in the middle of that room with a rug would be nice. And then once she moves things around, possibly there will be space on the wall. So again, it's a great opportunity to bring in art. It looks like there's lots of color here. So I would suggest go for something colorful on the wall, something that features a young child. I think art featuring young children is very relatable to young children. So
absolutely, yeah. Or anything natures, whatever the child is interested in. You know, if you have a child who is very interested into animals, you can have some picture of real animals on the wall, and you can vary that, you know, according to the interest. And indeed, what I feel is like everything is great, but everything has been pushed against the wall. And so yes, as you say, it's like trying to define some areas, and probably having just a cushion on the floor next to the books for the child to read on the floor, because there is no specific space to be able to sit down and read, you know.
Oh yes, yeah, that's a really good point. That if there is the space for seating and it looks like this room can possibly accommodate it, then to have a comfortable beanbag or an armchair next to the bookshelf, I think that would really be quite nice.
And as you said, she doesn't have to buy something. She probably has a cushion or a blanket that will define the space and make it comfortable for them to enjoy that space. Or just thinking about, you know, what else you have in your house that could be better for that space. And sometimes you take something from your own living room that it's not serving a purpose for the grown-up, but that would be better there. Absolutely. Okay.
I'm wanting to angle my camera, but my wire is not letting me. But I just wanted to show this lady. Can you? I just wanted to show this lady that I have here. This is
okay. Let me move that, and you can try to show your space behind you. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't know if she can see, but I have a frame here, and I just found it for like $3.90 Singapore dollars at an art shop. And it's one of those things that you can DIY, you can paint, but I just left it raw because I'm lazy. But that's the truth. That's the truth. That's why I started a blog called 3-Minute Montessori. But it's actually an interchangeable frame because you can actually move the postcards in and out. So if you collect lots of postcards on your travels or from your family in different parts of the country, then you can put them in there, and then your child, no matter how old, will have that opportunity to change out the art for himself. So that is also, that is a lot of fun, I think, for toddlers.
Absolutely, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's see what else we have. And obviously, you know, I really encourage everybody to go and check your blog because your Facebook page, Instagram, because you show your space a lot, and it's quite easy to see what you mean. So we have another kind of play space, which is this one, and that's from Freya, who was also on my course. So she has done a lot of tweaking around for this space, and it moved house. So now she can do that, you know, even better. So what do you think of this space?
Yes, this is great. Thank you. Is this a practical life area? Because I see a picture as well as a glass.
She has that's in the kitchen, so that's a little area in the kitchen. So she wanted to have whatever he needed for snacks or meal preparation there, and to have his drink. So yes, that's the jug was super important. She also had a water dispenser. I don't know, she doesn't show me the picture, but I think she moved that in favor of the jug, because probably the water dispenser was a bit too much to handle for the child. So now she does a jug.
Understand. Well, I don't think this lady needs any much help from me because the space is already done up so nicely. There is no art, so now I run out of things to say. No, I'm just kidding. I am curious as to what is in those baskets. Those baskets are lovely, by the way, because they have a little dip so that the child can see what's inside. And I think that the use of the baskets is really nice. But I also wonder what is inside, and that might help to give a little bit more input, really.
I think she does art in that area, so it's probably art basket and whatever toys he's interested in. I know that he loves like anything to do with cars, and so she has sorted all those toys in little trays, like he can choose the trays and works at the table. So yeah, she did a lot of work on her space.
Yes,
for sure.
And it shows that a lot of thought has gone into the design of this space.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't really have anything else to add except that on that bookshelf in the corner where she's got all her beautiful trays, if she runs out of space, she can always consider sticking some 3M books on the side of that bookshelf, and then she'd be able to hang a few more things up there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have another.
But that the photo doesn't show. Maybe she's already done it, but just in another part of the room.
Yeah. I think they have this IKEA spice racks in another area of the house. You know, the living room is just next door, and I think she has put that there just to have different areas.
Then she stopped it. It's fine.
So yeah, it's quite important to know that, to explain that you can have a playrooms with everything you need in that playroom, but your child is going to live in the house. So generally they tend to go everywhere in your house with you. And unless you want to stay in that playroom with your child, it's great to have these little areas, you know, spread out all over the house. Yeah, so we have this one. I'm going to just go down like that. You can see it in. So what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one?
I think that it is really good that she's got an armchair or a sofa bit in there, because I've encountered the same experience as you, which is that I've also tried to organize and decorate playrooms for a client, but I find that playrooms don't actually work quite as well as having a corner for the child that is accessible in the room that you're going to spend the most time in as an adult, because chances are your child will not be left to play independently in the playroom if you are not there most of the time. So I really like that she's got a sofa bed in there, and hopefully she can also set up an area for herself in there so that she will enjoy spending time in there as well. There's a nice selection of toys again, although I do wonder about the toys on the top of the calyx, whether the child can reach them. The rug, the play mat, maybe she could consider putting another rug over it, but that's purely stylistic, so she doesn't have to do it if she only if she wants to. Then maybe to put another rug over it, so that then the focus will really go right to those beautiful toys that she's got on the calyx.
Yeah, and as you say, yes, it's important to have a space for the adults next to the child, because that helps us to enjoy, you know, being with our children as well.
Yes, quite possibly a shelf for herself to put her coffee. I'm not sure.
Yeah, to put the coffee high up. Yes, absolutely. And maybe books and her own things. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I like this idea when we have a space for playroom. I like the idea to have a kind of art studio, because it's so difficult for parents, you know, to allow the children to be messy with art in the main space. So if you have the space, that's always something I suggest to my clients, is to make it an art studio if you have that extra space, because you're not going to be worried about the floor being damaged or whatever, because you decide to dedicate that space for art. And whatever is going to, you know, if you choose to send your children to mainstream education or even to a Montessori school, they're not going to do that much art. So yeah, even if you're not an artistic person, and maybe your child is not going to be, but art and a big movement area, it's definitely something that you can have in a separate space, I think.
Yes. And even if you don't have the space to make a whole room an art studio, you could always have 1 or 2 art trays. That's, I think, entirely doable as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the other side of that room. So.
And she's also got a mirror for the child to look at himself, I guess, while he is working on his mat, which is nice.
Yeah, it's a baby, and you can see that she used the IKEA baby arc toys, and that one is great. You know, if you don't know how to hang a baby mobile, with this one, you're not going to probably be able to put the Montessori baby mobile on it, because it's going to be very low, but you can have less distraction and just one hanging toy. So it's something that can be very useful. I have this one for my playgroup for that reason, and I added for my son because we were in a rented flat and it was very difficult to find a way to hang the mobile. So that's making it much more simple. And the main point is not that much a baby mobile, but to have something that the child can focus on, can focus his eyesight. Yeah. So I have another one here. To move the other one. So that's just in the main living room. And so she was curious also to have an opinion if she needed to put something. I think we have another view from the living room. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
So yeah, I suppose it's like to have a child space in the living room, I suppose, because there is not much yet for the child.
Yes, so it looks like she's in the process of starting to prepare her home environment.
Yeah.
And I think, like, naturally we'll start thinking about whether the ledge next to the fireplace is going to be a good shelf. So I'm not sure if the fireplace is working, but if it can be safely done, then I think that is a nice place for the child to have some work attractively displayed along the ledge. And you don't just have to put toys out there. If you trust the child, then you could also consider putting some precious objects, perhaps a beautiful glass paperweight, something sentimental, because I think it is nice for even a baby to appreciate objects of beauty. And if the fireplace is on all the time and you do not feel that it is safe for that to be a shelf for your child, then maybe you could have baskets on the floor. I'm not sure how old the child is, but in my experience, toddlers will usually stand at the shelf to work. They are probably not going to be able to bring a tray from one place to a table and then back again. So they might end up at the shelf. So I think the most important thing is actually to choose where you're going to locate the child's toys in this room.
Yeah, and as you say, it's nice to reuse what you have and not. She might not have to buy a specific shelving because she has that already. It's going to be temporary. You know, when he's a toddler, you're going to use that. When he's a bit older, you're going to have another system. So it's nice to not invest too much money in those furnitures because it's not going to last. They're going to change all the time. So I'm going to show you what I used to do. I used just to use my coffee table when my children were little. So that's a picture.
Right.
One of the rare pictures that I have taken, because I was not taking picture of my furniture, and so it's not that much. He was very young; he was a toddler, so I wanted just to display a few toys, and that's just what I used to do. We didn't have a specific shelf; it was our coffee table. So yeah, just to explain that you do not have to buy the very expensive furniture and invest in a lot of things. Yeah,
and you can totally Montessori the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. In my play group, it's a pack away, so we use table sets to delimit the space for each activity, and it's on the floor. And I don't use any chairs or table. Okay, we have a dining area here, and you can see that it's at the adult level because the kitchen is very small. But if there is a proper chair for the child as well.
Yes, and it's something that the child can climb in and out of himself, it seems.
Yeah. So because it's at the child level, finally there is some kind of art that you can observe even from his chairs.
Yeah, or maybe a vase of flowers, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's quite important to say as well. There is. Obviously having a child-sized table is very good, but if you don't have the space and your child is able to climb on and off a high chair like that, then it's going to be as valuable, right? And we have some other little space that are interesting to just show. And obviously it's already well done, but as you say, yes, hook at the child level everywhere.
Yeah. What's more important is that it functions well.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to function for the family. Yeah. And sometimes when we do the hooks, I think it's important to measure your child because we might get it wrong, okay, and put them quite high up, thinking that it's for the child, but then all of a sudden, that toddlers, it's much too high for the toddler. So it's better to put them too low and then put them higher as they grow and too high and having a child who is frustrated because it's not going to help him. And talking about hook, you have this one as well. I think it's just a common hook or a section hook. It does look like that.
And I like that they are the same color, so there's a bit of color coordination. Maybe was part of the set, but it is useful that even if you're getting your child's cleaning tools from lots of different areas, you might like to color coordinate them, maybe with like the same ribbon or a little piece of tape around the top of the handle, so that the child understands that these things belong together and they are used for similar purposes, which is for cleaning.
Yeah, and there is another kind of section hook corner there. I think it's part of the bathroom of one of the lady who sent the picture. So they have quite a big bathroom, but the thing was not accessible at all. So we came up with that idea of having this, a little area when the child could, see himself and have everything needed in the same area. So it's all with suction hook. So it can be temporary. So it's not going to last forever. It's on the side of the furniture. So it's definitely something that can be repurposed later on. So you have to think about that it doesn't have to be permanent. I think when people decorate their house, when we decorate our house as adults, we tend to invest and have something a bit permanent, like it's done, or it's done for, a good chunk of years. But when it's with children, we have to think about their growing needs, and that it has to be flexible, because, that can be quick, to be able to when they reach the next stage. So, yeah. And I'm going to show another space that is my own space, basically, to explain why we chose that space in my house. And it has evolved since, but we wanted to have some storage. So basically that's why we have these big furnitures, and it's not ideal, the Kallax, when you want to display proper Montessori toys, Montessori materials, but basically we didn't have Montessori materials in those Kallax. It was just to show that you can integrate, the play space and the storage together, basically. That's what we tried to achieve with that one. And we add the plant as well. I don't know if you want to say anything. You can say something, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff missing.
I like that you divided it from the door with another set of Kallax shelves.
Yeah, and basically, in fact, behind the shelf, on the small shelf, we add the open-ended toys. And on the other side, I think I have the other side. I had that rug, but I didn't keep it for long, to be honest. Because it was a bit distracting. But we wanted a space when he could, he was very much into building. So I wanted a space when he could have all these things that he wanted to do. And that was just opposite. I could see him from the kitchen. So he used to enjoy being in that corner, because he could see me in the kitchen when I was busy, cooking and so on. So that was a good space for him to play independently. If he had been on the other side of the room, he was further away, he couldn't see me, so he was more like coming back to me or asking me to come and play next to him. But when we set it up in that corner, then it was like we had the other side of the room was maybe a space when we were doing more activities together, basically, because that was the space where I would go and sit with him. While there, it was really the space when he used to play independently, which he doesn't do anymore, but... Yeah, we have proposed these areas. That's what's nice as well with this kind of furnitures. Like the bottom now has storage as well, closed storage, and that all the board games, and he still have some specific learning activities on the other side as before, but he has his open-ended toys in his bedroom, because he's in the second stage and we have a dog, mainly because we have the dog. So we couldn't leave that. So I think we went, we checked nearly all the pictures. The other one were also the bathroom, and just another view of the bathroom. So yeah, great. So I hope that's going to be helpful for everyone. And it's definitely something that you offer, in person, in your own flat, so they can see exactly what's going on. And that's something that I offer to my clients when they take my course. We do an audit, live like that, when they go around their house and we do an audit. So I think that's the best way to do it, right? That when they can see, when they can see it in your house, so they can really have an idea of what's going on. Or when we go to their house, or the best other way is to do a live session like that, when they can show us around.
Because really seeing is believing.
And it has to be for that family. So when we give, tips like that, I think the family has to still thinking about, it doesn't work because of this, or it might work, but, we have to be flexible because I have a baby, because I have a dog, or because I have a husband who does that or that. It has to be suitable for the whole family. I think that's the main big difference. If you think about the infant community from birth to 3, it's all done for the child, so it's super safe. But obviously, the practitioners is not going to cook in that space, or it's not going to, I don't know, have her own business in that space, her own, adult belongings. It's going to be all for the child. So when we talk about those space that allows a total freedom of movement, sometimes at home it's not possible. We need to have a specific space when the baby is going to be totally free to move. And it's okay if we have a safety gate for some space that are not, cannot be made safe. It's a very different things, so family life and the classroom.
Yes. And usually when my friends or my clients approach me for consults, I'll ask them a lot of questions because we could look at pictures like that and we could try to offer what is really just a best guess. But of course, you living there, you will know best what are your needs and what are your constraints. So there's always that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, the other question I have for you, we got in total direction. That's the questions I've asked all my guests. So I hope you have prepared it for me. Do you have prepared
I think I'm gonna just refer. Is that the one about the quote? That I have so many favorite Montessori quotes, but I'm going to share one from The Absorbent Mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just read it out to you. It's from The Absorbent Mind, page 66. There is no sense in talking about differences of procedure for Indian babies, Chinese babies, or European babies, nor for those belonging to different social classes. We can only speak of one method, that which follows the natural unfolding of man. And these two words, natural unfolding, is something that has stuck with me since my training. And the metaphor that I like to think about with regards to natural unfolding is that of a butterfly, because the child cannot do things any earlier or any later than exactly when he is primed to do those things. And in a similar way, a butterfly must free itself from its cocoon, and it must struggle in the process of trying to release itself from the cocoon. So for a child, similarly, that struggle is essential at times in order for him to achieve mastery and finally independence. And similarly, a butterfly's wings cannot be forced to fly until it's ready. And when it is ready to fly, you cannot stop it. So I think that a child is extremely similar in that we cannot push a child into letters or numbers until he's absolutely ready and he explodes into it much faster than you could expect, and he learns much more than you could have prepped him for. So I'm going to say that's my favorite Montessori quote. Also because it talks about how man follows the same developmental path as babies, and there isn't a difference between the Indian baby or the Chinese baby or the one of European descent. And if I may just add that one of the things that I took away from my training unexpectedly is that Montessori is culturally responsive. It's not monolithic. It is not just one representation of Montessori. And I think that's partly why I started my blog, because I wanted to figure out how Montessori might be in an Asian context, where we might live in very small spaces, we might be living in multi-generational families and therefore have the complications of in-laws and domestic helpers, and large families, which is both good and bad. It could be either way. But Montessori has to shift to celebrate your culture and to bring in your heritage.
Absolutely. That's what I like in your blog. I know that you have shown, the tea, or you make the tea, and it's something that I think that the activity is great, but obviously it wouldn't make sense for my children. They don't even see me drinking tea. But, on the other end, we drink a lot of coffee. And I show to my child how to grind the coffee, and that's something that he really liked. Oh, we're from Belgium, so we are from the country we like to say that we have invented chips, all right, and that there is a special way to cook the chips and to prep them as well. So that's something that we have done a lot with the children, and I don't think anyone else was doing this kind of activities with their children, because it was like so important for us to transmit that. And, they add all these cultural specificities that we like to transmit. And it's great to do that and to be able to do that within the Montessori method, and to introduce all the cultures in the classroom. That's so important, the way we introduce all the cultures. And it's so interesting. And, it's helps the children to really understand each other And as you say, we all develop the same way, no matter where we are born. And those natural laws of development is just what my Aunt Montessori has, uncovered. It was there. It was there. She just shed a light on that. She shone a light on the development of the child, but it was there already. Obviously, she didn't create anything. So it's an amazing quote, and I really like that you have chosen that one. And we have a different one every time, so it's great. Amazing. Okay, so my last questions would be about self-care, because I've tried to give a lot of tips to the parents about their own self-care. As a young mom, I was not even considering that I was allowed to take care of myself. I was like sacrificing myself for my child, not sleeping through the night, and that was like all good until you kind of break down because you're too tired. For the second one, I was better. Obviously, I was taking care of myself and asking for support, and I received amazing support. I just happened to become very good friends with another French mom who was living next door. So we were very much all the time together and supporting each other. And I've seen the difference, in my well-being, that I'm very keen to keep supporting parents to understand as quickly as possible after the baby is born that there are ways to take care of yourself. And it doesn't mean, leaving your babies with the babysitters when you're going to enjoy yourself. It can be done without children, obviously, and there are different ways to do that. So I'm just curious to know if you have a self-care routine, if you probably find it easier now that the children are a bit grown up and they are in school, in the preschools in the morning. So it's probably easier, but still, if you can reflect on what has helped you as a new mom, it would be useful for everybody else.
Well, self-care is so important for all of us, and you are so right that as new moms, we tend to forget that. We just get caught up in this haze of breastfeeding and getting used to this new life that is now in our family. But for me, the self-care that has been the most effective and the most sustainable has simply been to simplify all of my routines and to take a long, hard look at the things that I needed to do and whether I really needed to do them. For example, do I need to go for so many social engagements? Will all of these play dates, as good as each of them is, really be beneficial to my children? But also, would it be beneficial to me? Do I myself need that rest time? Am I needing some time to recharge? I think it also depends on whether you, on what kind of person you are, whether you draw your energy from being with people, or whether you draw your energy from sitting quietly. So I think I had to figure that out for myself, but learning to say no to certain things and to not be worried about what people thought about us. I think that might have been possibly the most sustainable way to take care of ourselves and our family.
Yeah. And yes, you're right. It's very important to simplify your life, because having children is going to add pressure and just daily tasks that you didn't have to take care of before you had the children. I still feel that it's something that I need to work on, like cooking and this kind of aspect. It's very difficult for me. I used to enjoy cooking, but as my children grow, it was difficult to find something that they like to eat. And so we've changed our diet several times. So cooking and finding what we're going to eat is still a struggle. So I know that the more I simplify it and the more I accept to simplify it, and the easier it's become. Like, for example, we eat cold meal in the evening more and more because they have a hot meal at school, both of them. So there is no point for us to cook again in the evening. And my husband and I, we work from home, so we cook for ourselves at lunchtime most of the time. So no, we like more and more like relax in the evening and saying, okay, we have sandwiches and we have soup and we have these kind of things that make our life so much easier. So yeah, I think that we have to allow ourselves to not be perfect, to relax and to simplify wherever we can.
And you shouldn't have to feel any guilt about it.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, we are all human, so we feel guilt and we feel pressure, and we have to sort that out by ourselves, at some point. Great. Well, it was amazing to have you. And so just to remind everybody, so you have your blog called 3 Minutes Montessori. So we'll post all the links, and you have, for the people who watch who are in Singapore who don't know you yet, we might have some of these. You do in-house workshops that must be amazing to go to, because you can really sense what's going on and what is it Montessori, what is it minimalism, and how it helps by coming into your house. And also you're going to start an elementary introduction, an introduction to the elementary, way, the elementary side of Montessori. So it's going to be online. So we're going to share that as well because it's brand new and it's going to be, I think that's the first one I've seen. So I'm very excited for that.
I hope so too.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's looking exciting. So yeah, and we're going to keep seeing you in my Facebook group anyway, I'm sure. Okay, so thank you for watching, everyone. And if you watch this as a replay, please keep asking your questions. All right, and just stay 2 minutes on the line when we finish this live. Okay.